I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, well, there's so much work to be done. And we're both, we're Memphians, right? We here, and I don't really want to dig into the past. We could talk about the past year. Sure. We could talk about the past 30 years.
Sure.
But I think what's most important is what we're going to do in the future. Right? What we're going to do going forward.
Right.
And I have known about you for an eon, it feels like.
Really?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I mean, we're in the public education space, right? And when we're here, we're local, and we deal with a lot of the elected officials in town and the chambers and all these things for like civic improvement. And your name's always kind of been popping around. It's always popping around as like this there's a lot of talent in the school system.
Exactly.
And you kind of think about those stars. You think about those people that are just getting it done. And your name always kind of popped up as a guy's getting it done. And I think that what I was surprised by was, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, 2013 or so, 2014, 2012,
yes,
where you were on the short list to be superintendent back then.
Yes, sir. Yes,
well,
sir. That's correct.
Well, I know I said I didn't want a history lesson.
Right.
But your name's been up there on deck, and now you're in the seat. Mm-hmm. And how's that feel right now?
Well, it feels great. I'm excited about the opportunity. I've always wanted the opportunity, but I've always too had the mindset that God's delay is not denial. And so I want to thank God for just the opportunity to be able to lead a school district that I've always wanted in my heart to lead, but I wanted to make sure that it was the right time and it was his timing and not my timing. Yeah,
I think, though, it's important that the community understands that you have been leading.
Right.
I mean, you haven't been the throat. I'm an old Army guy. The throat to choke, so to speak. The very, the pointy end of the stick.
Right.
The delayed thing. I agree with you. I've had a lot of things that have been delayed that really did awesome stuff, like down the road.
Right.
And so you took this spot, and I feel like there's a lot more energy out there about it than in the past. In the past like 4 or 5 years on this stuff.
Right.
So. Man, it's what, a $2 billion budget?
$2 billion if we're including ESSER. Without ESSER, we're about 1.5, 1.6. So without the COVID funding, we normally are about a 1.5, $1.6 billion business with Memphis-Shelby County Schools.
Okay, so it's funny you call it a business. And I dig that.
It is a business.
Yeah, and so when do you think that the mindset that it's not a public utility and it's a business, at least in your mind, when did that begin to pivot and change?
I think it's always been there. I teach a policy course at Christian Brothers University, and when I'm teaching the policy course, I know how teachers and educators are. We tend to have our hearts on our sleeves. We love our kids. And we tend to look at it as a place that educates kids and pours into students and loves students. But at the end of the day, when you really, really study education, education is about it's a business. It's about economics. Even the economics, when I was thinking of good to great today and thinking of really what is our hedgehog concept as a district. And it says 3 things. What is it that you can be the best at? And I think what I'd like for us to be the best at would be educating urban students. What are you passionate about? I'd like to say that we're passionate about, again, educating urban students and under-resourced communities and students. But lastly, what drives your economic engine when you think about Jim Collins and what hedgehog concept means? And what drives our economic engine is student enrollment. If we don't have students and if we don't have student enrollment and we're not able to generate revenue through what you call your basic education plan, which is now TISA, if we're not able to do that, then we're not able to, one, educate students, but also employ employees. We have about 14,000 employees. We're the second largest employer here in Memphis. So when you think about that, it is a business.
Well, it's interesting to me because people that listen to this regularly know that we're in the business of helping schools, right? Public schools, right? And because the money follows the student, and people will say that, well, that sounds a little coarse.
Of course, right.
But if it's $14,000 on average nationwide per student, And if that money leaves, well, if the student leaves, the money leaves with them to go to their school. But that's not the rub, right? So let's talk a little school choice.
Okay.
Vouchers and things like that. Right. And I was on a program just the other day where the commentator didn't understand any of this stuff.
Right.
And I don't know how we're going to get the message out that, like, I'm an American. I'm American, right? America, right? I dig competition. I dig school choice.
Right.
I do. I really do. But I think, this is my opinion, I'd love to hear yours, is that the problem, though, is that all the competitive institutions, charter schools, homeschools, well, maybe we'll get into no school before you walk out today, which is terrifying. Unschooling terrifies. Is that they don't have the levels of bureaucracy, the levels of structure, the levels of legal requirements on them that public schools have. So they say, people say, we want free choice. Right. But I mean, I feel like the public schools are hamstrung to be able to compete on a level field with all this stuff. I mean, so when we're trying to recruit students, people are like, well, the students should go to the best place for them. But if all they hear are all the positives from these other things, and you're not allowed to teach the positives, I don't know.
Well, we are in a choice environment. And again, I'm the interim superintendent. And as long as I'm the interim superintendent, my focus is going to be on how do we make our school system the #1 urban school district in the country. And I say #1 school system in the country because I don't want to compare our school system to, let's say, Collierville or Germantown, because it's different, much like you've said, but it's also a matter of choice. And so when I think of choice, I want us to be the #1 urban school system where people choose to want to send their children. And part of that is I want us to be #1 in academics. I want us to be #1 when it comes to attendance and our students coming to school each and every day being prepared to learn. I want us to be #1 when it comes to student attitudes and making sure that we're looking at the whole child when it comes to student attitudes and behavior, social emotional learning, their mental and physical well-being. But I also want us to capitalize off of what I call Memphis's collective advantage, and that is athletics. We know we have some of the best athletes right here. I want us to really leverage our athletic program. And last but not least, the arts. We know some of the best musicians and painters and fine arts people have come out of Memphis. I want us to leverage that. Again, I want us to be a system of choice where people choose to want to be part of Memphis-Shelby County Schools. And I think that starts with the leadership. It also starts with recruiting the best and the brightest when it comes to effective teachers and effective leaders, but also effective administrators at the central office level.
Well, okay, so let's break this up into some buckets.
Sure.
Okay, because I mean, I'm gonna get a little deep on a few subjects, right? All right. So you've been in the driver's seat for like
a month.
A month. Like minutes, not years. So I'm a little hesitant to ask this, you know, and it was not one of those things that like you were planning like, for 6 months ahead of time.
It's a month today.
It hit. So it's 30 days today,
30
right?
days
Okay.
Today.
But I'm still going to ask you kind of a jerky question. All right. Sure. So one is I love lofty goals.
Right.
And I like the fact that there was a bit of realism, which is not the #1 school district. Every community is different. I agree with you. Right. But the #1 urban one is a very good. And why do you think that Memphians? But now look, this like we talk to educators all over the country with this. I hope they're all listening today. But this is very personal at home. How come more Memphians don't have that kind of aspiration that you just had?
I believe, again, everything rises and falls on leadership. And I believe it's incumbent upon me as well as our board to set the tone for that. That's why I think it was important for the board at the time to select me. They wanted someone who would provide that continuity and that stability so that we can get back on the right trajectory. Someone who can bring the community back together. Being that I'm a Memphian, I'm hoping that I can bring Memphis back together and people believing in our district and believing in its leadership, which again is the superintendent is one part. Another part are the 9 board members. And one of my 90-day plans will be looking at board governance and the relationships that I have with the board. And I think as we start to go out into the community and we start to align our words, our actions and our deeds along with our words, people will see those things are matching, and hopefully we can reinstill the confidence in Memphis-Shelby County Schools.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of getting excited right now listening to you. It was funny. When Jim Strickland was elected mayor,
right.
I just happened to at the same time have a speech I was going around giving to the local community, and it was the 100 Reasons Why Nashville Stinks. And it was a tongue in the cheek. I mean, it was a tongue in the cheek. It wasn't like it was really about like trying to build us up. I mean,
right.
the speech was a little bit of a hook, but I was always shocked because I'm a transplant.
Right.
I came to Memphis after the military and after law school. And Memphis has changed my life. And so I'm a big believer in how awesome it is. But a lot of people that are born and bred here, they're not as excited, as enthusiastic as I'm hearing from you.
It's all about having a growth mindset and not having a fixed mindset. I think, again, in speaking life into things, and again, it rises and falls on leadership. And again, I want to inspire our administrators. I want to inspire our teachers. I want to inspire our entire community. Again, when I look at myself, being a product of Memphis, coming from a background similar to many of our students, single parent background, coming from an under-resourced community. I graduated from Tresvant High School. So I hope our students—
We won't hold that against you, sir. We won't hold that against you, sir.
I hope our students in our communities can see, hey, if Dr. Richmond, Roderick Richmond, a regular guy, single parent home, graduated from Tresvant High School, went to Tennessee State University, went to Ole Miss, went to Union University, received my doctorate. If he can do it, you can do it as well if, again, you change your mindset. And I think it's important for us to help change people's mindset. Another one of my favorite theorists is William Glasser, and he refers to it as your quality world picture. And many of our students in some of the under-resourced communities that they're growing up in, their quality world picture may not be as clear as it needs to be. And that's when teachers and people like myself must inspire and help them to see that there's other worlds and other opportunities out there that exist beyond their current circumstance and or community.
Well, I'll try to get the students to understand a little bit more of a global view, that they're not necessarily stuck in one situation. And that, that connects with me. I mean, I grew up in like Section 8 housing, single mom, poor. The military kind of opened my eyes up.
Right.
And so if the school system here can do that, I kind of dig that. So you'd mentioned like 90-day plan. Any other little highlights there that you want to talk about right now?
Well, I'm still working closely with the board, but of course, I'm going to start with board governance and building a good relationship with our board members. I think that's where it starts. The superintendent is hired by the board members. They're, by all intent purposes, my boss. So I want to work closely with them to move the district forward. The next thing will be, again, focused on student achievement. I think we have to focus on literacy and numeracy and making anywhere from 5 to 10% gains each year in regards to student achievement, focusing on literacy, but also understanding, when I talked about our 5 A's and just talking about our students at large, every student isn't going to go to college. And so preparing students for both college career and life readiness. And that may be helping students with trades to receive certifications so that—
Why do you think that's a rub to say? You remember this whole thing is every student college, but I'm like, why? Like, I mean, look, I went to the military. The military helped me go to college and law school. I get it. It worked. But my brother-in-law,
Right.
super smart guy, makes a great living.
Right.
Trade school. He wants to work with his hands and he's awesome. Why has that become like a bad thing to say, I guess?
What, every child college?
No, that it's okay to, like, not every child's going to go to college.
Right,
Why is that a bad thing?
I don't think it's— ideally, we would probably want every child to go to college, but in the real world, we know every student is not going to go to college for whatever circumstance. And so I, like you, believe we should be preparing students again for life readiness, which may consist of going to the military, may consist of going to college, or in some instances may consist of going straight into the workforce. But again, ensuring that those students are going to be positive contributors to this community.
So we know that. So we do a lot of national polls. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to give you a prelim on the national poll we just finished about attendance, because you just mentioned it. I got a little treat for you, sir. A little treat for you. But we know from running national polls about how to recruit and retain students, there are 3 drivers that families want. I can't say parents. It could be the grandparents or family members, but the people that are in charge of the students, right? They want 3 things. Number 1 is they want the child safe. Number 2, they want the child successful. Successful. Whatever successful means, though, is different to every family. And I think that something happened somewhere in the 80s or 90s where they thought success, the government should decide what success looks like. Right? But I mean, it's kind of to your point, is that they want their child to be successful. Some of them, it just means they want them out of their house paying their own bills, or going to a job. So I'm really glad to hear you say that, because you could get some resistance. And I think, and from not from what little Brian Stevens says, but what the data shows, what the science shows, is that that's what is needed, is to give them multiple vehicles to be successful, because people just want to be happy and good for you. All right. I didn't know if I was on board with your legacy yet, but I'm digging where you're heading.
Well, I think going through COVID, many people going through COVID, it really kind of redefined what life was about and what was most important. And that's where you saw a lot of people really kind of somewhat checking out in relationship to what they would call the rat race, materialism, and some of those other things. Even when we look at working for a company 30 years and retiring, that's kind of an antiquated thinking if you think about how companies and businesses are now. And so when you look at that, I think we have to reimagine what does success look like. And just like you said, probably for everyone, success looks different. But the one thing we want is just for people and students to be positive contributors to the society, to our society, which means they're not out here breaking the law and doing things that, when I think about education, the Diluter-Satan Act of Massachusetts of 1640, which says people who were uneducated were doomed to hell because they would be participating in vice. And so what we don't want is people out here doing things that they know are not the right thing. So part of educating is educating people around just the golden rule, treating people the way you want to be treated and making good choices.
You're losing me. You're totally losing me. Are you telling me you're going to help the children learn how to act right?
I think that's part of educating students. When we think about, I'll use social emotional learning and those 5 competencies: being self-aware, being social aware, being able to manage yourself, making a responsible decision making, as well as your positive relationship skills. When you think about those 5 competencies, those things will go a long way with a student in relationship to life and life readiness.
So we ran a poll. And I always put some tester questions, and it's not this one, but it was an earlier one, and it kind of sprung up in my head just now. And it was, okay, do we need to teach children, behavioral self-control issues, like so that they don't act out and get in fights and emotional quotient type questions? I'm not reading the question exactly but do you think we need to teach them how to, behave properly? And overwhelmingly people said yes, but then I put a tester question in there.
Okay.
Should we also be teaching the parents? Is it the job of the schools to teach the parents how to have emotional control and not to act out and lash out? And overwhelmingly, the people in this national poll said yes. And 10 years ago, I ran a similar poll, and people were like, no, it's not the job of government. But now they're like, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So you're doing what a lot of school districts aren't, which is you're going to start to focus on actually teaching those soft skills.
Soft skills, yes.
Any thoughts about trying to help the parents with those issues? I don't even know how to tackle that. It was just popped in my head.
Well, when I think about our family and community engagement department, we do sometimes have what we call Parent University. We do have some parenting classes and courses in regards to helping families. I'm going to go back to William Glasser, and he says that mental health is the #1 public health problem. And I think we should be doing more to address mental health.
Is that on the website? Is that on the MSCS website, the family services in the university?
I'll have to go and check we do have, again, a family and community engagement department, and part of that department's work is supporting families and us providing classes and courses to better educate parents, not just around student academic issues and concerns, but also helping them with some parenting advice, how to help their kids with homework, how to better support their kids and their families if there are some mental health issues or things going on in the homes. And we sometimes do that through our partnerships.
Yeah, and it's funny, because I always worry about overstepping, and you're upsetting people because you're not trying to talk down or belittle them or whatever. You want to provide help, but we have some young guys here. We had some interns, and right before Christmas, we had some furniture shipped in, and old Jack over here and I were putting some stuff together and doing some speakers. And we had some young guys, and we pulled a drill out, and they were, not handling that very well. Right. They didn't know what to do. Right. And I didn't want to be like, let me tell you how to use a grill. Let me teach you these skills. Yeah. But we kind of sat down and we started doing it. Next thing you know, they're asking questions, and then we ended up spending like 6 hours, 7 hours with them, and they were pumped up. I mean, we know how to use drill. We know how to use this. We know how to use this. And it was like, wow, man, we do need to be doing that. And I guess I didn't realize that you guys were already doing that.
Yeah, sometimes we take for granted what we think people should know. Yeah. I think about being a parent, coming from a single parent home and being a father to my 2 sons. I think I probably was a better father for my second son than I was for my first son, because I was learning how to be a father, because I never had a father. Yeah. So I was learning. And so when you think about many of our parents,
give me a little knuck on the we get it, man. That's tough. Yeah, I get it.
So when you think about many parents, it's okay to say it's okay to say that you don't know. And it's okay. That's why it's important for all of us to have mentors. I think about men who have been mentors to me, who may have been fathers to their children, who have talked to me about fatherhood and what it means to be a father. But I also think about community groups who do events around fatherhood and recognizing being a father and how difficult it is to be possibly what you would call a first generation father, because so many of our students, like many of us as adults, may come from broken homes.
Yeah. Do you know, I'm always trying to provide good input for people that are watching. What are some of the mentoring programs around that people could join in Memphis? I know we've lost some over the last 5 years.
We've lost many of them, and that's another thing that I'd really like to look at. We started a mentor program in Memphis-Shelby County Schools this year called Legacy Builders. Well, is it Legacy? I forget the name of it.
Legacy Builders.
Legacy Builders.
It's all right. People know that there are people off camera that are helping us.
Yeah, we started the mentoring program, Legacy Builders, but we also need more mentoring programs throughout the city and within our school district. So we'll be looking at next year building on having more mentors in our schools.
I'm thinking back to another conversation we had around the government structures and when the school system was together and then split. And I was having conversations with suburban people out in the rural county areas. And one of the things that they'd said was, well, look, Memphis was spending 17,000 on students and Shelby County Schools was spending 11,000 on students, and they're wasting money. And I go, time out.
Right.
Time out. Do you take your child to the zoo? Well, yeah. Do you read them books at night? Well, yeah. Do you do trips? Yeah. You ever taken them to a museum? Yeah. All that is added value on their education that a lot of the kids in the urban school districts do not have, because they don't have somebody doing that. Thank God I had, like my mother did, God's work, trying to get me, my little crazy butt back up to speed, and, but like I had good uncles and aunts that like, I got that exposure and they would take me to things that augmented my education that so many of the kids don't have in an urban setting. So kind of going back to your goal of, well, we got to compare apples to apples. Urban to suburban, just It's just not the same level because, look, if you got a lot more money, you could do a lot more for your kid. You can provide that tutoring stuff. So I just think is people need to get a little bit better perspective on that. But that mentoring thing makes me feel guilty I'm not doing more. And so legacy builders.
Well, it's Legacy Legends.
Legacy Legends.
Legacy Legends is the name of the mentoring program that we started, trying to get people to come in and to mentor kids, and we're trying to build it out. But again, we need more mentoring. We need more partnerships with nonprofits and people who are out there who want to mentor students, because we know our students need to see other people who've gone through some of the things that they're going through, some of the individuals who've grew up in some of the under-resourced neighborhoods that they're in, to see, hey, you can do it, you can make it. You're not an anomaly. There are others who've had similar situations, who've gone on to do well within our community. And so we want people to come back to their schools and communities, and we want them to give back to those students, because they need to be able to see that other people have been successful who may have attended those particular schools and grew up in those communities.
Yeah. So I've got a good picture in my mind's eye now about your global vision. All right. You have a goal. I hesitate to say that's awesome, but it's kind of awesome because we work with school districts, and I think we're in 27 states now, 28 hopefully next week, is if Adrian Bond will do his job. And I just want to mention one thing about this before I get off your global plan: the governance and the board. I think a lot of Memphians will say, "Oh, the board's crazy and there's a lot of infighting." Trust me, I've sat in school board meetings in other states. If you want to see chaos, go watch some of those. We're not that bad. We're really, I know people think that it's, a little healthy arguing, a little healthy fighting's okay. But I mean, I was in a board meeting about a month ago. It was over a month ago because you weren't in the seat yet. I sat there for 6 hours of just watching the school board members. And I was like, I'm staying all night for this. I don't have anything else to do. This is just like a soap opera, So we're not the only ones in an urban issue dealing with issues. So we're not alone, right? All right. So I want to talk about a couple of little things more granular. Okay. So there was an article in the Daily Memphian today, and it's funny. The state's going to take over. And I go, that's not what they said. That's not what the article reads. There may be an advisory board, maybe there's some oversights. There's been some chaos and stuff, but have you, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that you want to share. And also, have you started to reach out to anybody at the state yet?
Yes, I have. I spent all last week in Nashville meeting with legislators, introducing myself, letting them know who I am, and really letting them know that I think Memphis-Shelby County Schools is in good hands, and we'd like to have an opportunity to move the district forward. So I met with a number of legislators and just introduce myself and talk to them about some of the things that the board and I are thinking about doing, again, to stabilize and to move our district forward.
How was the reception?
I think I was well received. All of the conversations, from my vantage point, went well. We had open and candid conversation about the district and where we want to take the district and where it needs to go and how important Memphis is to the state of Tennessee. And so I think we're all in agreement with what the goal should be, and that's student achievement and our school district doing well and moving forward.
What do you think if you had to pick like one reason why the state advisory, state control thing is just continuing to press, what would you equate that to?
I think anytime education is important, and people want to see their educational institutions doing well. They want them to be free of having board meetings and things like that are negative and not really good when you look at some of the optics. I get that. I want the same. And I think our 9 board members want the same. And I think our 9 board members, what I can say is that, first of all of them either have children within the system are children who've gone through the system. I think that's a plus. When I think of all 9 of our board members, I can see positives in all of them and how they connect to the citizenry in our city. So I think if given the chance, again, with myself and all 9 board members, all of us rowing in the same direction, identifying what our goals are, staying focused on our goals, staying transparent as it relates to our city and what we're doing at our board meetings, I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah, it's you know, I was on the election commission here for a while, and the school board is always hard to just get people to run.
Right.
It's a job. You go to the supermarket and somebody's yelling at you. Yeah. You know, I mean, you go to your kids' soccer games and why don't you do this? And I'm like, it's a $1.5 to $2 billion enterprise, man. Right. It's like, I'm not trying to make it's a labor of love. It's hard work. I think that they're doing it. They're not doing it for the money. Right. You know, they don't get paid. So the funny thing is though that my perspective from looking at the boards around the nation is we really don't have that much infighting. It's really not near as bad as a lot of other elected boards I've seen. I mean, you get some hairy situations because they want to try to do what they think is right instead of quitting. So let's with the state. Yeah. I know you can't predict the future. But you're keeping the lines of communication open?
Yes, keeping the lines of communication open. As I've told many people, I've worked with the state on several occasions. Even when I think about the board, remember I worked with a 23-member board when we were going through the merger.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Yeah. And that was like a 9-month deal or in and out.
In and out. And so I've seen an expanded board, but also when I think about working closely with the state, I worked closely with the state under BEP 2.0, under then Governor Bredesen, where we had to turn schools around. I worked closely with the state when they had the new ASD legislation. So,
you know, okay, I got to talk a little bit about hypocrisy. Yeah. I'm going to get on soapbox.
Yeah.
I remember ASD when it came out.
2010.
And here's what they said. We're going to take the bottom 5% and make them the top 5%. Right, and I sat in the room and I got sideways with a lot of people and I said, you're all out of your mind. You're all lunatics. That's insane. It's an unrealistic objective. You're never going to take that hill. You know, but it sounded so good on a marketing piece. It sounded so good on a little advertisement piece. And a lot of that is what's led to the school choices because the competitors let them compete. Right. Well, just say anything they want to. And now ASD is where's ASD again? Can you remind me? Does anyone know? Oh, they're gone.
It's still in legislation.
Well, you know, it's certainly they didn't achieve any of those goals, but I don't recall a bunch of news articles about what happened to the 5% moving to the top. It's like, look, realistic goals. I know they're not as sexy and as exciting and doesn't get everybody all inspired, you know, but it's like, I just want people to understand that the grass is not always greener on the other side of the fence with this stuff. And this, you know, I worry that the local community should dictate what they want for their children. And if they don't like what's going on with the school board, they can unelect people.
True.
So what does somebody from Knoxville or Chattanooga want to have to say about us? I don't know. Yeah. You want to give us any insights that come up at all?
Well, again, I don't want to make assumptions about what the legislation is going to be. I pretty much, I'm going to go back to Eckhart Tolle. I really try to live life pretty much in the now, because sometimes living in the future creates fear and living in the past creates pain. We're just going to keep doing what we're responsible for doing to better ensure a quality education for our students.
Okay, awesome. Let's get granular on attendance. You mentioned attendance.
Yes.
And I happen to have in my little hands right here, we run national polls and then we do a lot of polls and surveys for individual school districts for their specific issues. But we always do a national poll on what do families want for recruitment. But also we started years ago doing attendance polls. What would stop a parent from going to school? What's needed? What do they need? But we also added ICE issues, immigration issues in this particular run because if anyone's paying attention to the news, it's kind of a big deal right now, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to throw some things out to you.
Okay.
And you're the first one to get this. We're doing a webinar in a couple weeks on this. So it's all rough cut. It's all rough cut, okay. Doctor. So I'm gonna give you 2 data points.
All
okay.
Right.
So people unanimously say school attendance is important. I mean, they say that. I mean, it's like 88, 89%. It's important. But, there's talk and then there's action, right? So then they say, how often do you have to motivate your children to attend school? 46% of the people say weekly. So they're fighting with their kids. They're arguing with kids. Like, look, I get it. My mother went to work before I was supposed to wake up, and I just wouldn't wake up. I missed a lot of school in 5th and 6th grade, like a lot, like a lot. I just wouldn't wake up. And then I'd move my little bag. Like I'd take my bag from my bedroom and put it down at the front door like I was at school all day. And this was before, text messages and all this stuff. So eventually they'd get the note.
Right.
And I get a whooping and then I'd show up. And but they're since COVID, this number has been increasing.
Yeah.
But the issue is they say it's important. But then when you ask them how many days can a student miss before it affects them, right? 45% say they can miss. It doesn't affect them until they miss 9 days a semester. And you could tell me your perspective, but it's my understanding that the science says every day you miss, you're less likely to be in that category successful.
Right.
Every day you miss, it makes it harder.
Right.
And we're not getting that message out to the parents or the caregivers, or are we? Also in this poll, they say that the school districts are doing a ton to focus on attendance. I can't speak to MSCS officially because we didn't poll your region, but they say that the schools are telling them to show up.
Yeah.
They're fighting with them. And in another data point, they're saying if they fight with them too hard, they just let them stay home. Yeah. Well, how can we connect the dots to get them to understand that showing up is like 80% of the battle?
It's important,
right?
Yeah. And it's not part of it. It should be the easiest battle because it's really a technical aspect versus an adaptive aspect. When you think of the 9 days, that aligns with what chronic absenteeism is defined as, is missing 10% or more of the year, which would be the equivalent of about 18 days. But again, I get back to the 5 A's. And when I think about the 5 A's, what I think we have to do a better job of is making school a place that kids as well as staff want to escape to rather than from. And I think
Wait. Say that again louder for a second. I got to absorb that. That was kind of
making
cool.
School a place that students and staff escape to rather than from.
How you do that?
Well, it starts with making school fun and exciting for our students. I think we've gotten away from that when you start to think about the last 25 years, NCLB, No Child Left Behind, really focusing on accountability and teaching to the test and some of those things. Now, we know we have to do those things, but again, that's where I think we have to incorporate other aspects of learning, music, art, PE, allowing school to be a place that kids can come. And if I'm not strong in the area of academics, we continue to work on that to help you get stronger. But there are other things that we're offering that you may do well in, and you can shine in those areas. When I think about those 5 A's, as a principal, when I used to institute it, I would tell parents and students there's no reason for every student to not have an opportunity to walk across the stage and to be celebrated for something at school. So if you're a straight A student, we're going to recognize you for academics. If you're present each and every day, we're going to recognize you for attendance. If you're a straight E student and you don't get in any trouble and you get along well with others, you're going to be recognized for a positive attitude. If you're a great athlete, we're going to recognize you for that. If you're good in the arts, that's why, to me, the 5 A's are so important, but also why it's so important for our students to have well-rounded academic programming at their schools. We've started to go around and take instruments to schools because many of our high schools have been without good quality instruments. We were able to find some Title IV money, and we purchased $7 million in instruments. And I've gone around and helped to deliver those instruments and to see the excitement on those students' faces, to see that they're receiving new instruments for them to learn to play an instrument in school. What I want to do is to strengthen feeder patterns, whereas in our elementary schools, we have ORF music and students are exposed to music in elementary. Then in middle school, you're able to be in the band or choir. And then when you go on to high school, you're able to refine some of those things that you've been exposed to. Well, the students that we're delivering these instruments to, particularly in high school, many of them have just now started taking band in the 9th grade. And so when we start to think about that, you know, why have we delayed our students having that level of exposure? So I think if we start to do things like that, we can get students to school. Students will be excited about coming to school. But if I'm going to come to school and all we're going to do is teach to the test, or all I'm going to do is come to school and be reminded that I may not be as strong academically as I should be, then I'm going to check out. And so we don't want our schools to be like that. We want our schools to be enjoyable places that students want to come, but we also want to create environments that our teachers and staff want to be there as well, because I think that's what moves a school and a school district forward.
Yeah, you know, there's so many issues, from teacher burnout, right, to lingering COVID effects, to teaching the soft skills. And so I definitely want to have you back on. Sure. And I know that your time is tight. I appreciate all the time you've given today.
I appreciate the time you've given me.
Well, I'm fascinated by this stuff because I'm reminded of a study that came out, and it said since the 1970s, it's been 50 years, school budgets. I mean, school staff and support has gone up 57%. We fired 57%, but school populations have only increased 10%. Right. And academics have not improved. Right. And I'm like, time out. Also, you can't just look at these things in a singular lane. At the same exact time, federal laws started to occur in the 70s. Now, some really good laws. Right. Some Title I, some good laws you need, like nice laws. But it takes a lot more administrative oversight and staff just to comply with the laws, which don't teach the kids and don't help with the culture. Right. And then right now as a society, school districts are public schools, public schools are paid for standardized test scores, not for building great cultures, not for creating problem solvers. Right. How are we going to uncork that beast?
Well, it costs more to educate a student today because we have a more diverse population. We also have more students who are being born with disabilities, and it costs more to educate those students. But I would also push back on the fact that true accountability, has only been around for about 25 years if you're looking at No Child Left Behind, 2001 to now. And so when you're trying to compare how schools were 50 years ago versus now, I don't think you can make the same comparison.
Yeah. Let me ask you this one last question.
Sure.
All right. Right now, as it stands today, what do you need from the community?
The energy that we've seen around what has gone on, let's say the last month or so, imagine if we had that level of energy and excitement toward truly educating kids and rallying around our community and our schools. What I'd like to see us do would be to see us as a community come together. Let's come together and let's harness that energy toward positively impacting our schools and community, speaking life into our schools and communities, and not speaking state takeover, not saying that our board and people who are in charge are corrupt. Let's speak life into our system. Let's speak life into our community. Let's speak life into our children because they're watching, they're paying attention. And when so goes public education in this city, in my opinion, so goes the city and the community. we need our school system to do well, and we need to hold it in high esteem, in my opinion.